Hello, my name is David Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Dakota. Dakota is a software company focused on customer experience solutions. And what we specialize in is identifying the why behind customer behaviors. And we do that by analyzing unstructured data or human communications to reveal customer emotions, perhaps changes to their state of mind, to the topics that they're talking about, as well as a wide array of other cognitive states. We look at all that data to understand and deliver a clear understanding of the context of what's being said so we can produce actionable insights for executives like you. As we've had conversations with organizations that have made investments in this area, we found a lot of discontent. And so what we decided to do is put together what we call the Executive Series, and it's really meant to be a primer for executives to understand a little bit more about the technology so that they can understand why they're seeing what they see when they go to the meetings or they have information presented to them by their organization. And so today I'm going to focus on a very specific question, which is, why aren't the investments in sentiment analysis and text analytics producing actionable insights for my organization that I can have confidence in? And so this is what we've heard from clients that we've talked to. And I think that the challenge is, and again, there is some discontent in the marketplace here, it's because there's so much hype around artificial intelligence and machine learning. You know, the claims just aren't matching the reality. And I think that that's a bit of a challenge for the organizations that we're talking to. So today I'm going to focus on some of the limitations of sentiment analysis, NLP, and machine learning. And I'm going to leave you with a handful of questions that you can use to go back to your organization to assess their readiness in delivering actionable insights to you. So let's start with a definition of what sentiment analysis is. Sentiment analysis is really nothing more than a thumbs up and thumbs down indicator. It's a very abstracted view of the data. It doesn't tell you why, and so it's very difficult to then actually take action on that information. If you know that 22% of your customers aren't happy, that's not really enough for you to sink your teeth into to make a decision on. So that would require a lot of additional work in order to make that data actionable, right? So sentiment analysis is often based on natural language processing techniques or machine learning techniques to deliver these results. And that's what I'm going to drill into a little bit. So first, I'm going to drill into natural language processing because I think that that's probably the basis for the vast majority of solutions in the market today. So I'll start there. So natural language processing is really an engineering field including computer science, artificial intelligence, and computational linguistics. It's focused on human-machine interfaces, and you see that with solutions like Siri in Apple. You see it with Amazon's Alexa, the Echo machine. You see it with call center, IVR solutions, and so on. And these are all solutions where humans are communicating with machines. And these machines are being trained to understand human communications to drive the next best action. And so NLP is a very specific approach to analyzing information that focuses on primarily words. And it has some steps in the process that I think are the root cause for the error that you see in the data that might be presented to you. So the first step in the process of natural language processing is to get rid of half of the words. And the reason this is done is that essentially what's been decided in NLP is that there are words called stop words and or but the, and I'll show you the list here in a moment, that are considered to be unimportant words. So we can focus on important words. And so the problem is that stop words are the most frequent words in English language. What we found is that it's roughly 50%. So imagine if you get a post with 50 words in it that we just get rid of 25 of those words. You might start to have your common sense meter go off right now because fundamentally you can understand why you might see error if you start to get rid of some of these words. So these are not all the words. These are a handful of words that are often used in NLP solutions as stop words. And I'm going to give you a very specific example to kind of drive home the point here. 3 of the words in the list here are I do not. Now, if you have a customer that says, I do not love a product that you make, that is obviously a negative example of what it is that they're saying. But think about this for a moment. In NLP, we get rid of the word I, we get rid of the word do, we get rid of the word not, and we're left with love. We've gone from a negative experience to a positive experience. This is a false positive. So these are the types of things that you'll see in the data if you kind of drill into the natural language processing techniques that are often used today. The next step in the process of NLP is something called stemming. It also reduces the quality of the data by taking words that we see in the data set and reducing it down to a root word. So if we have a word like cat-like or catty, that is reduced to the word cat. So as you can understand, this also would have a significant influence or impact on the context of the conversation, where these are representations of how somebody's behaving versus this is actually regarding a cat. So this is challenging for us and really, again, reduces the quality of the data. The third step in the process is something called lemmatization. Lemmatization now focuses on something around identifying common dictionary meanings for words that we see. So as an example, the word she, mother, and mom might be reduced down to the word woman. That's problematic because when somebody's speaking about a mother, it's typically a position of authority and respect, right? And that's important. And when you talk to corpus linguistics folks, which are typically out of the English department, or cognitive psychologists, they see that as very important in understanding human communication. If somebody's talking about mom, typically it's peer level and it's more friendly. So these distinctions can become very valuable in the communications that we analyze. So if we were to summarize very quickly on what happens with NLP, 3 of the steps in the NLP process greatly reduce the quality of the data. We're working on much smaller subsets of data. And by the way, the reason this is done is to make it easier from a processing and efficiency standpoint for the actual computer side of what's going on. But the trade-off is significant. So we might have higher performance in terms of speed and throughput, but what that might mean is we're just getting bad results faster. So we see that it's a big mistake to discard what we consider to be rich texture in the data that can be valuable in identifying emotions or the context of the conversation. And as I indicated, people like corpus linguistics folks and cognitive psychologists are very concerned about indiscriminately throwing away this type of information because it can be so meaningful in understanding what motivates customer behavior. So now let's jump over to machine learning. Machine learning is an application of artificial intelligence, also engineering focused, and it is a process whereby an engine can be trained with data. So we might have a series of examples of something like happiness, and we find all the examples of how people communicate happiness. We take all that data, we basically then load it into a machine learning model, and through the process of what's called feature engineering, we identify the features that are common to happiness, and we create a model for happiness. And so what happens is, as that data is trained, and by the way, humans can train, the machine can train itself, although this isn't as sophisticated as we'd like it to be today. And then you can have hybrid training where if it does train itself, it can be moderated by a human to ensure its quality. But fundamentally, the training process is we get example data. That example data comes together to look at the features that are statistically significant and that co-occur in the data related to happiness. And we essentially create a mathematical model that produces an address. And think of this being in a 3D space. So there's an address that represents happiness in a 3D space. Then what happens is, as we have data, whether it be social media data or call center data or live chat data or survey data come into the system, it is compared to this address. If it's closer on top of it, there's a high probability that it may be related to happiness, but it's not guaranteed because the features associated with happiness could also be shared with other things like excitement. And so just because it's trained doesn't mean it's going to be accurate because of the uniqueness of how people communicate related to certain topics. So data comes in and it's compared, and then you identify the ones that either match or don't match. And there's a challenge here with machine learning because you can say, well, I only want to see examples where we're 80% confident that it is related to happiness. And when you do that, you can become very narrow and you can be very accurate in your detection. But if you expand that to perhaps be 70% and you start to get out here, then what happens is you let error creep into your model. And this can be challenging for you. So you're forever struggling with what's the right percentage that I should be looking at. And when you have error, then humans need to become involved and need to validate what it is that you're actually seeing, and that can be challenging for you. So I want to talk about 2 definitions related to machine learning. One is called precision and the other is recall. Precision is when you call something for happiness as an example, it really is happiness. So in this case, all 4 of these are happiness and we check the box where we're 100% precise. Now, if we had a 70% confidence threshold and 2 of these got in that had features of happiness but weren't happiness, they were excitement, these would have black X's on them and you'd have 50% precision, right? So that's precision. Recall is in a data set of, let's say, 1 million posts from your customers, let's say we know 500,000 of them are related to happiness. Well, if your engine only picks up on 250,000 of them, that means your recall rate would be 50%. If you saw all of them, then it would be 100%. And so when somebody comes to you and says, well, our precision rate for our application is 100%, that may mean that they've made it so tight that they see a very small subset of data and they've missed a lot of data that should be looked at. And so these are just some of the things that you really need to be aware of, because the words that people use are very, very important. Precision is how accurate am I detecting the things that I actually detect, and recall is am I seeing all the data. And if you have low precision rates and low recall rates, that's bad. If you have high precision rates but low recall rates, that's equally as bad. So these are some of the things you just need to be aware of as people are coming to you with certain terminology so that you understand the meaning and the impact of those. So let's summarize a little bit about machine learning. It's a probabilistic model. Probabilistic models mean that it has error in it. If you aren't highly confident, then you have to have this go into the hands of humans to validate what it is that you're actually looking at. That can be expensive and time consuming, as you already know. Machine learning does a great job of distinguishing between things like apples and oranges, but it struggles to identify nuances. So like the difference between a red delicious apple and a red gala apple can be very difficult. Or in our world, distinguishing between things like happiness and excitement can be difficult as we begin to look at some of those. Or maybe even surprise and enthusiasm, right? These are things that are very nuanced that need to be understood. So very difficult to get to nuanced conversations, and the process of feature engineering can be very time consuming, as your engineers already know, and you're constantly balancing all these different investments that need to be made in order to deliver a certain level of confidence that you can be satisfied with. So let's summarize. NLP and machine learning is all the buzz and expectations are high. Results have not been as good as we'd like them to be, and what Gartner calls this is the valley or the trough of disillusionment, if you will. And a lot of companies that we talk to are there because they've made these investments. It's been presented that we're going to see the information that we haven't seen before, and what we end up seeing is what we already know. And that can be very disconcerting for executives that have made significant investments. So text analytics is an imperative, though. We have to get there. It is a tip of the spear in understanding the why behind customer behavior. So we need to make these investments. It's important that we double down and we get better and better at this so that we can scale to meet the expectations of executives like you. And so solutions need to move beyond kind of this dumbed down perspective, and we need to walk away from traditional techniques like a single approach of NLP or a single approach of machine learning and begin to look at solutions that leverage all of these different techniques simultaneously to deliver something that's more valuable to you as an executive. And so leading examples, in our opinion, should really focus on things like emotions, identifying somebody's persona, what was the experience that somebody had, were their needs met or unmet, where do they stand in the purchase path, and what are the topics that they discussed. And then use all of those, not even individually, but in combination with one another to understand what's happening through the lens of your customer. So these are the 6 questions that we identified that you might want to ask people inside your organization. So how precisely do we classify information? When we call something for whatever it is that we're interested in, are we actually accurate? And if we're not, how are we resolving those issues? Do those have to go to humans, or where else do those go in order for us to achieve a level of confidence? What is our recall rate? Of all the data that's coming in, how much are we getting and how much are we missing? Do we know the answer to that question, which is very important. If our recall rates are low, what's the strategy to increase that, right? So in many cases, organizations have these huge armies of people that actually moderate all this data and are looking at it by hand. We don't think that that's necessary, but if you have these solutions, that may be your only answer to addressing the error that exists in some of these platforms. Are your vendors telling you what you already know, or have they actually gone to that next level and produced something for you where they're giving you something that you didn't know before, which is really what companies are looking to achieve today. Is the data actionable, and do we know what specifically drives the behaviors or the things that we're interested in pursuing or learning more about? That's vitally important as we look at the data and we try and understand it so that we can make it more actionable for organizations. And then finally, how much confidence do we have in this data? You know, what we find in organizations today is that there's three ways to get people to buy into customer-focused or customer advocacy-based models as it relates to their organization. And you can provide evidence, you can motivate them and inspire them, or you can use coercion. We believe that if we deliver better data and better evidence, that it makes it easier to get people to lean in to the challenges once we've presented them and they can actually see and quantify the impact that these different customer experiences are having on the business itself. So we really feel like the evidence-based model is where people need to make these investments in. So hopefully these questions will be helpful for you. What we do, just as a quick commercial for what we do, is we take data that comes in through surveys and other techniques, as I had mentioned earlier. We use a technique called an imaginative question. Tell me about your product or experience, and tell me like you tell a friend. Our one question is the equivalent of what might be 10 to 50 structured survey questions, but we only ask one question. That data comes into our engine, we analyze that, we interpret the results for you so you can act with confidence. And we believe that this is a model that's very efficient and effective, and we deliver insights that are really beyond the compare for a lot of other companies in the industry. So, if you're not happy with the answers that you're getting from your organization, or you just want to find ways to get your organization to get your perspective on understanding the value of actionable insights, please call us. We'd be happy to sit down with you and have a conversation with you. Or if you just want to chat, please reach out to me directly. Also, if you'd actually like this presentation, you can email me and I'll follow up and send it to you directly. Thank you for your time. Hopefully this was helpful, and have a great day.